Welcome, one and all, to the Ferret and Raccoon podcast, episode 206. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the first podcast of December 2022. And it's quite scary to know that this is one of the last podcasts of the year, one of two, and that the end of the year is fast approaching. It is the first week of December, and yeah, there is a lot to do. There is a lot to be excited about, because obviously Christmas, the holidays, whatever you celebrate. But yeah, more on exactly what's going to happen in terms of this podcast and the end of the year coming up real soon. But yeah, in terms of what I've been doing over the last 2 weeks, honestly, not much in terms of like watching things, playing things, unfortunately. Most of my free time has been dedicated to getting things done towards the end of the year podcast, Christmas, other things, birthdays, and that. It's pretty much a birthday season for me when it comes to the end of the year. So I'm kind of in between things, watching things, getting things done. So nothing was completed or finished for the most part, which is a little bit disappointed, but I should have lots of things to talk about very, very soon. But like I said, I will discuss that at the end of the podcast. So let's move straight on to our trailers and topics and discussions and all that, because it is a small one, but it's a very interesting one. We got a lot of trailers that just came out of nowhere for the most part. Things that, yeah, I kind of really wasn't aware of. Particularly our first trailer, which is going to be for Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Now, I genuinely didn't know this film existed. Like, maybe I'm getting older and it's getting harder for me to keep up with what's like current, if you could even call the live action Transformers films current. Or maybe it's because I stopped caring about these live action films after the second one, which I did see in cinemas and I thought it was okay. But yeah, like, I don't know, clearly someone is still watching these, but does anyone actually care for the most part? Like, I doubt the Transformers fans care that much about a new film. Like, what number film is this? Like 7 at this point? Because I really can't keep up for the most part. And financially, these films can't be doing well. Like, after the first film, it must be declining in, money. I doubt it's bringing in $1 billion each time. But yeah, also, way to remove all the hype from a Biggie Smalls like song. Like, what a terrible remix they used in this. Where it's just repetitive and just awful and annoying. But I don't know. It is an interesting trailer, I guess. I kind of found it more funny than awesome for the most part. I don't know. The idea of seeing a robotic gorilla just banging its chest and it has like a soothe, calming voice as it talks to Optimus Prime is hilarious to some extent. I did speak to Owl about this trailer. She's looking forward to it. She thinks it's going to be a lot better than some of the previous ones, but not as good as Bumblebee. So I guess some people care, but for me, I was just like, whatever. This looks like the most generic thing ever, for the most part. I mean, it's kind of goofy. Like, there's lots of things that are very goofy in this trailer. Like, first off, that police officer dies because of the Transformer. He drives into, I don't know, one of those yellow things, so he's dead, so that's good to know. The shot where he walks out of the car as it transforms is like so try-hard. It's like trying so hard to be like cool and badass, and it would have been cool if it wasn't like shot with like a boring flat like aesthetic, like almost a still camera, and the lighting is just awful. And yeah, the CGI just isn't great, which brings me on to, I guess, my next point, where sure, the CGI might not be finished for the most part, but it isn't good from what I see. It's very cartoony and their designs are like noticeably less detailed. They're a lot lamer as well. Like, they just don't look awesome for the most part or very interesting. There's no intricacies with like where parts go and what makes some form of an anatomy in terms of like a robotic being, in terms of a human robotic being, because there is a parallel between them. Obviously, they walk on 2 legs and, arms, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, everyone looks way skinnier. Like, Optimus Prime was like, he was big, he was like buff to some extent. He looks really slim, like very flimsy as well. Like, I know that a different studio, animation studio, was doing, I would imagine, the CGI, but I don't know, these redesigns are just really weak for the most part. It doesn't look like Optimus Prime. It looks like his younger brother or something like that, or someone's going to take over the mantle of Optimus Prime for the most part. And yeah, everyone just kind of looks like a statue as opposed to a robot. They kind of haven't really captured that whole mechanical, robotic essence that at least the Michael Bay films had, where you could see, like I said, the compartments, the joints, the sections, the plating. Here it just looks like they're statues that are imitating robots for the most part. And yeah, the transformations themselves are just kind of weak. They're just really boring. You do see that one shot where the guy's in the car and it transforms over him, and that just looked really dumb for the most part. Like, why would you do that? It's just silly. It's trying way too hard to be cool. I get it, this is a film for 8-year-olds, but still, it's just bizarre. And I mean, even the trailer itself, there isn't much to say because the trailer is just scenes. Like, obviously, I hark on about like trailers revealing too much, but this film gives you nothing. It is literally just scenes. All we know is a bad guy is here, and that's it. We don't know who the human characters are. We don't even really know who any of these other characters are. I guess they're going for, recognizable iconography. Oh, look, it's Optimus. Oh, look, it's Bumblebee in that. But it's just weird. Like, there's no context and there's no rhyme or reason or narrative. So it's hard to get hype for a film where I don't even know what it is. Like, what does the title mean? Who is this gorilla character? What is going on? Do we even see the villain in this? Who knows? But yeah. That's my take on this Transformers film. I honestly hope it bombs so that we can stop having these stupid live action films that have no respect or interest in even doing something remotely decent with the animated series. But anyway, next trailer I want to talk about, another surprise one, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Knew they wanted to do another film. I just wasn't expecting it so soon, or even a trailer for the most part. I mean, it looks alright. Some of the set pieces are very interesting with like that American like backdrop setting where I'm not sure what time period that is exactly, but it seems like some kind of celebration, Independence Day. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it is interesting, as well as like seeing Indiana Jones like riding on a horse in a train station. It's silly but fun. They seem to be kind of capturing that essence of it just being very bombastic, very serial-esque. I'll give it that. It does look like someone's trying, especially compared to Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, which this film does unfortunately look like. It does have a lot of visual and story structures like that, and themes as well. For example, kind of bringing back characters from those films from the past, and kind of like harping on the fact that Indiana Jones is much older, which is fine. I mean, although they need to calm down with like the sort of color hue and the lighting, like just because of like, how do I put it? Just because the day or the time period, not really the time period. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. Essentially, just because it's the afternoon or it's in like a hot or dry environment like a desert, it doesn't mean that the whole world needs to look like yellow and have like this weird yellow tint for the most part. It's really bizarre. I don't really get it. It just seems like they're just compensating for a lack of actually being able to film or light a scene properly. It's very obvious that someone has gone over in post and done that. There's no way that it was filmed with that aspect, because I mean it most likely is CGI and all that kind of stuff, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. What else can I say about this trailer? Because once again, there isn't too much to say about it. I mean, Harrison Ford seems to be giving his all. I mean, the guy is 80 years old, so props to him. Maybe this is a role he really enjoys, and yeah, good on him. I'm also excited to see Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is in this as well. She was the creator and the star of the BBC series Fleabag, which is an extremely good and funny show. I'd highly recommend watching that. I mean, the bit at the end with the whip, it's a cute scene where you kind of just see Indiana Jones just like, just whipping people into place. It's great. It felt a little bit like a Naked Gun joke for the most part, just the setting and the scene. If you've ever seen The Naked Gun, the very beginning of the first one, it kind of reminded me of that. And yeah, like, I guess the only downsides about this trailer is, obviously this is coming off Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was an awful film. Are they going to make the same mistakes they did in that film? Who knows? And we're really doing Nazis again. Like, could we have a different big bad? I mean, this is like the third time now that it's been Nazis. Third or fourth time. And it's just like, yeah, I get it. It's where it takes place. I don't know what the time frame is, because Indiana Jones has gotten considerably older within the last few years, but who knows? I don't know. It's bizarre. I'm personally not super interested in it. I don't have a lot of faith in it. Not given, like I said, the fact that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, and also that Disney is responsible for this. Disney has no interest in doing anything new with the things that it's acquired. So, yeah, it just seems like whatever for the most part. Moving on to our next trailer. This is another one that I was aware of and didn't actually think was a real film, but that's going to be for Cocaine Bear. Like, what even is this film? Like, I know they're going for the whole, oh, we know you know how silly it is, so let's have fun with it angle, but the juxtaposition in this trailer is so strange. Like, you have these, like, weird and, like, debatably funny characters. That's fine. It's a comedy. You can have characters that are weird and dumb and strange and all that kind of stuff. But the deaths are like that of, like, horror films. Like, there's a weird contrast, just doesn't work. Like, characters should be, like, comedically bitten or leapt on from, like, off screen, and oh, they're just dead. The bear got him dead. You see like an arm flying in the air or whatever. Death should be, like, creative or dumb in this, if that's what they're going for. Not having people, like, thrown 9 feet across the air, or, like, people being dragged off and screaming for their life. Like, that happens in a horror film. Even the shot where the mother is hiding behind the tree and the bear kind of puts its claw on the tree, that's very horror movie-esque. It feels like they don't know what kind of film they wanted to make. It feels like they wanted to make a silly film, but they still wanted the bear to be considered a threat, despite the fact this is a film about a bear that ingests cocaine and it somehow gets super strong or superpowers, or even is cognitively aware of what is going on. I'm pretty sure if a bear did eat cocaine, it would probably die, or it would just be comatose. Like, obviously, I don't know the biology of bears or what would even happen, and hopefully no one has tested this to find out. But yeah, it seems really dumb. Like, they don't really understand or have even set up their own rules for what can even happen in this film. And, like, they're just trying to have it both ways. They're trying to have, like, a funny film, but also a film that's scary or that makes the bear, like, threatening. You can't do that when you have, like, you're playing white lines and all this other stupid stuff. It just doesn't work. I mean, it's a decent concept, I'll give it that. Some scenes are stupidly funny, like, the bear jumping at the moving ambulance. Like, that's really funny. That's a great scene in a shot for the most part. But the acting is really forced, and it's way too campy for my liking. I get it. Once again, it's a comedy. It's a stupid concept. No one's taking it seriously. I get that. But it doesn't feel like people are trying. It just seems like they're trying to ham it up because, oh, we're in a film where a bear has eaten cocaine. Oh. It doesn't work. And I don't think the children in this film are very convincing. Just because a child can swear, it's not shocking anymore. Children swear all the time. Children know swear words. They use them all the time. It's whatever. It feels like a film that should have come out in the early 2000s, and maybe that's what they're going for, but who knows. And I mean, wouldn't a bear, if it swallowed cocaine in a paper bag, wouldn't it straight up just die? Like, it's in the trailer, it swallows it. It doesn't rip it open and eat it. It swallows a paper bag. I'm sorry, that bear's dead. That was a bit stupid for me, I think. But I don't know. I won't be watching this film, and I'd imagine lots of people won't. It seems like it's just going to be a film that's trying a little bit too hard to be that funny meme film, and I think it'll only really be a funny meme film once this podcast is uploaded, because I think everyone will forget about it. But last trailer we have to talk about is the big one, and that's going to be for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, I'm going to need my hanky for this one, because damn. Given that this is the last film, and we're not sure what or how this is the last film, Marvel and director James Gunn hasn't really said. They just said it's the last Guardians film. I don't know if this is a sort of passing the baton situation, or the end of these characters' arcs, or what. But it seems very emotional, which is fine, and I think it's quite earned given the characters and everything we know about them and everything we hopefully want to see these characters, not want to see these characters, hopefully everything we want to see happen to these characters. But I was a little bit worried that this film would be like way too serious for the most part. Like, just no more comedy, straight up emotion, action, setup, emotion, action kind of thing that a lot of Marvel films go for nowadays. But seeing Drax blast that ball in that kid's face was reassuring that this is a comedy. I mean, that was hilarious. And the line at the end when he's talking about how we're going to kill lots of people and just resorting to the fact that they're just going to kill one stupid lonely guy that no one likes, that's brilliant. That's strong writing. I mean, this film honestly looks awesome. Like, in every sense. There isn't any real fault I have with what I'm seeing so far. I mean, it's nice to see it's nice to see our Guardians of the Galaxy in like one of their older outfits or uniforms. I think that's really cool. They really look good in film translation for the most part. And it seems like they're going for a more heavier focus on Rocket Raccoon, which is awesome. He's one of my favorite characters, obviously. It's good that they're finally going to be like expanding or explaining on his backstory, which is an interesting one, but a very dark story based on how they're going to tell it, especially when it links to one of the main villains in this in this film, although you do see the villain. Also, we get to see Lila, who is the otter character you see hugging Rocket Raccoon in the trailer. That's Rocket's girlfriend or soulmate, given that she's an otter, and otters, they stay together for life, which is quite cute. The fact that she's here adds a lot of implications, but it kind of confirms that someone will not get a happy ending, which is quite unfortunate. If you don't want to go into this film knowing anything about what's going on, please don't look up this character or any of the comics regarding her, or any of the games, I should say more accurately, because I feel like they're going to take influence from particular narratives regarding her and Rocket. So, fair warning there. I'm not going to say anything because I know some people don't know as much as I do and kind of want to go in cold turkey, and that's fine. I'm not a massive fan of the main villain. I've never liked this character. I think he's kind of lame. We'll see what they do with him. They might make him threatening. Obviously, as it is a Marvel film, we all know the main villain is going to die at the end of this. That's not really a spoiler. I mean, almost all 30 or whatever films have had that same narrative where the bad guy dies at the end. But it is kind of cool to see Will Porter as Adam Warlock. Although he looks a bit small for the role, but that's fine. Maybe they're going for a different version of him. Maybe he's not as superpowered as he usually is. But that's cool. I think he's a great actor, and I think he's going to do really well in this role regardless of what they have him do. And some of the visuals are really cool in this trailer as well. Like, seeing their ship just like landed in like this suburban, like kind of Earth-like area, and everyone's like a weird humanoid character, but with like an animal face is quite interesting. And there's like that weird, like fleshy, like matter covered thing. I don't know what it is. It's like a wheel, and it's like covered in like what looks like flesh or organic matter, and they're like jumping on it, and it looks like something's exploded and the residue of a person has just kind of remained there. It's really gross, but it's really interesting, and it's super creative. It's the kind of stuff you want to see deep in space, and it's the kind of thing that the Guardians of the Galaxy video game that came out last year did really well. It's very creative, and just kind of seeing the characters like jumping in those multicolored spacesuits, it kind of has like that a weird like nostalgic kind of weird retro-y vibe. It just thematically it just works, and it just looks great. I mean, I'm really gushing over this film because I think this could be a potentially a really strong film in the Marvel series, and I think if James Gunn does knock it out the park with this one, we could actually have like a fantastic trilogy within the Marvel universe, because most of the films in the Marvel catalog aren't great, let's be honest. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be trailers for the most part. There wasn't much to really talk about, but the things there are quite exciting. I feel like certain people have just kind of come in and just kind of gone, oh, get people excited for next year. We've got some things coming out, and all these films are releasing pretty soon. We've got a kind of discussion this podcast, and it's going to be Christmas themed, of course, or holiday themed. And I'm titling this, What I'm Listening to This Christmas. Now, I think Christmas music kind of gets a bit of a bad rap because it's very repetitive. The moment it hits December 1st, it's the same songs over and over and over again. And being as alive as long as I have, it is quite jarring to kind of hear these songs. And I have unfortunately grown to hate these songs. I don't necessarily think they're bad songs, but it's just when you hear these songs several times a day for like 25 days, it's really irritating, which is a shame. So that's why I often tend to listen to other alternative Christmas songs for the most part. And I wanted to kind of share a few of these songs, EPs, albums, music, whatever, with you, just in case you want to hear something a little bit more different. And I guess the first film, I keep saying film, I just have films on the brain because I've been watching a lot of films. The first one I want to talk about is going to be from Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, and Hodgy Beats, with the interestingly titled Fuck This Christmas. Now, this is a much older song in Tyler the Creator's backlog, and I'd imagine there's a lot of people who haven't actually heard a lot of Tyler's older music, and if you go into this song, or if you are one of these people, you might be shocked with his context for the most part. It was a lot more violent, a lot creepier, a lot more demonic for the most part. But this is a song that's quite interesting because it's one of his earlier things. I don't think it was ever properly released as far as I'm aware, but it's essentially Tyler and co. essentially rapping about Christmas in a very vague and kind of awful sense. Like, the whole vibe of this track kind of gives off a sort of teenager who hates Christmas and doesn't really want to be around family kind of aesthetic for the most part. You do have like a very interesting, like, kind of like the Jingle Bells kind of on beat, kind of, I guess, being shook. I don't really know how you'd refer to using Jingle Bells, I guess, but kind of has that instrumentals, and it is kind of funny to kind of hear Tyler, Hodgy Beats, and Earl kind of harmonize with in a sort of Christmas-y sense by kind of going fuck this Christmas, and other refrains or mad libs. And it is quite a comedic song. Like, don't take it too seriously. They aren't just saying like, oh, get rid of Christmas or whatever. It literally is just fuck this Christmas for the most part. Even having, Tyler the Creator saying, if you're the gift from God, then I'm the gift wrapped from Satan and stuff like that. It is an interesting song, and I do like it. There's something that it's quite quaint and interesting about it. It stands out above a lot of his other, let's say, unreleased beginner songs for the most part. Changing gears real quick, I want to go and talk about one of my favorite Christmas albums, or kind of just one of my favorite Christmas things in general, and that is going to be a Charlie Brown Christmas from 1965, composed and played by the Vinci Guaraldi trio. I'm never sure how to say their name, but I think most people know this album, these songs, from obviously the Charlie Brown Christmas special, as well as the album and the songs. Honestly, one of my favorite things to listen to during the Christmas time, because I think these instrumentals and these songs are just so beautifully played for the most part. Obviously, the most famous song on this album, it's an iconic Christmas song, is It's Christmas Time. It's a fantastic song, fantastic melody, even with or without the vocals, which I love. I think it's honestly one of my favorite songs of all time, just because of it's just perfect in my opinion. You have other great songs like Skating, which I think is just a wonderful melody that's just kind of really encaptures that winter wonderland kind of ice skating out in the snow kind of vibe so perfectly. And lots of other instruments and elements that kind of fit more into the Christmassy holiday winter vibe, which I absolutely love. It's a fantastic piece of music which I highly recommend listening to if you've never heard the whole, I guess, album, if you've only heard like the one or two songs. It's just wonderful, and I think every time I do hear the children choir to kind of sing on the It's Christmas Time, I think it's awesome. Like, it's very emotional, but I think it's very strong at the same time, and it's an aesthetic I really like. It's just like choir harmonized singing from children. There's something quite profound and very interesting about it, which I really, really love. Sticking with the year 1965, we have a slightly more obscure Christmas song, which is a cover, and that is going to be from the Sonics with the Sonics with the oh my god, I can't even say this word. The Sonics, the Village Idiots, which is actually a cover of Jingle Bells, all the way back from, like I said, 1965, off their first album, which is Here Comes the Sonics. Interestingly enough, this album is regarded as the first punk album in music history. So if you're a fan of punk music, rock music, you owe it to yourself to listen to this album and kind of see the origins of punk and where punk went after this album. It's a really good album, one of my favorite albums of all time, and a very strong contender for one of the best albums made, in my opinion. But this is a really interesting cover I like from the Sonics, where it kind of has a really raw energy, as I guess the main concept of this is the band, they kind of bring this village idiot over to kind of sing Jingle Bells, and he kind of sings it a little bit like Bobcat Golf, Bob, I forget the comedian's name, a bit like Bobcat, who has like that weird, oh yeah, I can do that, kind of voice, and he kind of sings his version of Jingle Bells with the band kind of playing. And although the audio and recording quality was a lot lower back then, there's something quite interesting and quite fun about how every time they kind of, he says, laughing all the way, you kind of hear the band just kind of scream and shout at the top of their voices, and even how the song ends with them just, screaming and singing in unison as they hold the last line and kind of laugh and joke about how like this village idiot can sing the song, and, just kind of encouraging him to keep going. The banter between the band and the village idiot and just the whole song, it just works. It kind of just reminds me of like when enough people have had a few drinks, or they're kind of together and just someone gets on the guitar, the keyboard, the piano, whatever, and everyone just starts singing no matter how well they can sing. And I think it really encompasses that aesthetic and that kind of holiday moment, which I'm sure so many people have experienced or you will experience at some point in your life. I really love it. It's a great little cover. It's a great little song. One of my favorite covers of that song for the most part. And the last song I want to talk about, kind of going back to rap for the most part and kind of encompassing, once again, I've used that word a lot, other Christmassy songs, is going to be MF Doom x Cooking Soul with Doom XMAS. I feel like I may have talked about this album or at least a few songs before on the podcast, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's such a great listen. Essentially, producer Cookin Soul takes a bunch of songs, lyrics from MF Doom, the legendary MF Doom, rest in peace, and kind of incorporates them into Christmas instrumentals and kind of does enough great things to make it sound interesting. It's not just MF Doom's vocals over a Christmas song you know and love. He's added his production, he's added a sense of beat progression, he's made the song sound interesting and one of its own, which I think is really good and really strong. It's a 20-minute album, EP, whatever you want to call it, and I do love how he's sampled and used the audio clips of MF Doom when he was hosting or took over Adult Swim a couple years ago, and he kind of just hosted it and kind of just introduced each show and kind of just talked there. And it's worth looking up those clips as well, just if you want to see MF Doom just having a bit of fun, just sitting there in a Santa hat, fire to his side, Christmas setting, just kind of talking about, yeah, next here comes this show and that show. And even on this album, he does say that, coming up soon, he's going to have a pie eating contest with people, or he's going to fight to the death with Santa Claus. It's a really great use of those samples and a bit of obscure media. And the songs themselves are really great, like Xmas or Xmas Ladies is a fantastic track which takes one of his most underrated songs, being My Favorite Ladies, and kind of incorporates that with his own beat, as well as I believe a Luther Vandross's Christmas song, which I can't remember the name of it, but that mix is so good in my opinion, and it's a real highlight on that album. So yeah, I'd highly recommend listening to that, especially if you're a fan of MF Doom, if you want to hear something a little bit different but familiar, or if you just want to hear something, once again, that's just different and familiar in terms of Christmas that isn't just the same generic Christmas songs. Although I will say some famous instrumentals on that MF Doom mix album do appear here, but they're so changed and remixed that they're basically their own new things for the most part. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be the podcast. I know it's a short one, but I think it's kind of fitting for the most part, given that the next podcast, 207, is going to be the best and worst of 2022. The reason I'm on my own for this episode is because pretty much the people who want to be on it are getting prepared. They are watching, playing, listening to the last things. They are getting their notes ready. They are, to some extent, getting hype for the most part. So, yeah, we are all preparing for this episode, this podcast. It's going to be an interesting one, I can say, for the most part. And on that note, I will say that unlike the usual podcasts, the end of the year podcast will not be going up on time. Usually, or based on how I upload, it's always the first Monday after every 2 weeks. The end of the year podcast will not be going up on the 19th of December. I will not be able to do it in time. So expect a delay on that. When is it going to get uploaded? I'm not sure, but I'm going to aim to get it up Christmas Day latest. So hang tight. It'll be a couple more days, but I think it'll hopefully be worth it and a really fun listen at the end of the day. But yeah, that's the last kind of update I have. But yeah, I guess we got the video of the episode to talk about, which I was going to try and find a Christmassy themed one. Couldn't find anything. I've kind of talked about Christmas already. So I'm going to leave you with PinkPantheress, Picture in My Mind. Fantastic, earwormy, great little catchy song by PinkPantheress, who is a much newer artist, upcoming artist. She has a really soft and sweet and kind of high-pitched voice. Even this song itself and what it talks about is lovely. The music video was fantastic. One of my favorite songs of this year so far. I'm looking forward to anything she releases at this point. I'm a fan. So hopefully you guys enjoy that and listen to her and kind of give her some love and support. But yeah, on that note, I guess I will end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast, which will be the end of the year. So I look forward to that, and I will see you on the next one.